You give blessing.
Certainly. Please bow with me. Our dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, and we thank you for the opportunity to serve our Cherokee citizens. We ask for your guidance and divine intervention in our thoughts and our actions and our words. In Jesus' name, amen.
Sir. Rex Jordan. Here. Theo Smith.
Here.
Keith Austin.
Here.
Harley Buzzard.
Here.
Joe Bird. Julia Coates. Here. Tom Crittenden. Joe Deere. Mike Robbins.
Here.
Diane Duncan. Daryl Legg.
Here.
Wes Snowfire.
Honey.
Dora Kaczkowski. Here. Mike Shambaugh.
Here.
Mary Bakershaw. Lonnie. Denise Taylor. Here. Victoria Vesquez. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Need approval of the minutes from July the 20th regular session.
Second motion, they be approved.
Second.
It's approved. Reports, management resources, David Moore.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good to see people in person. WebEx is getting a little old, so I'd rather see people. I know you'll have a report. I just got a couple of things I'd like to point out. We did receive our 2 bulls from Yellowstone herd. Also, we have one of the hypochlorous machines hooked up and making product. We can do about 600 gallons in a day. So we're pushing that stuff out, trying to get people to use it, helping out some of the community organizations with it. So we're supposed to get another machine next week hooked up. So just wanted to point those out because they were kind of on the list of coming.
What do they call them now? What's that called? What's that machine called?
Well, it makes hypochlorous acid. It makes disinfectant. It's basically water, salt, and electric current. It's real safe.
So the machine, the big machine that makes it, and then do you also have to have a smaller one that you apply? Or how does that work?
I hear a smaller one for what?
Do you have to have the smaller one that you actually take it to site to spray it with?
Oh, yeah, we use backpack sprayers for it right now.
Oh, okay.
And, but we actually make the product.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then and it can be put in a spray bottle.
Oh, okay. That was my...
But it is a very mild, corrosive. So you got to kind of watch some of the material you put it on.
When you make that, do you put it in that big jugs, that
Right
water
now
around
we put
it?
it in a tote as we make it because it is dated. So we want to try to keep it fresh. Once we get the other machine hooked up, we'll probably run 2 machines we got some big tanks, holding tanks, and we can adjust as the need comes. Right now, we're making about 1,200 gallons a week right now is about all we've had the need for.
Gore Fire Department gave that away at our food giveaway the other day, and that was a big hit.
Yeah, good.
Everybody really enjoyed that.
Good deal. I mean, that's what it's here for, to help.
Harley?
Yeah, Dave, what about schools? Are there any schools requested some, do y'all have a school that's requesting hand sanitizer?
Yeah, I don't see that request from schools or anybody really that gets passed to me. But I know some of the fire departments and the community, some of the community organizations are passing it out to schools and stuff. I think the one down south actually is passing it out to a lot of the schools.
And so who do they contact to get that?
Probably gonna, for sure.
I was gonna say, here's a couple of things that we are doing. We sent every one of our schools that we sent motor fuels or motor vehicle tax dollars to.
Yeah.
We sent a $10,000 check, and that was to help them buy PPE and cleaning supplies. Additionally, we have opened up a competitive grant process for those same school districts. It's going to be based on need, the number of Cherokees served in the school, free and reduced lunches, if they receive funding from the state as well. So we're trying to send dollars to them. We've ordered 30,000 masks from FEMA for smaller kids, and then consider like the 7 to 18-year-olds. And then we've also ordered 30,000 adjustable masks that are like these, adjustable ear loops. Those FEMA sent us about 5,000 out of the 30,000 we called to ask where the remainder was. The other 30,000 masks will be here next week. So we should start to deploy some of those. We have sent out some care packages to a few schools that have requested it. So if they do have any, you can either send that to Laura, either or myself, and we'll get on.
I had one request, they request earbuds, but I'm not sure what they're using it for.
They're doing it for virtual classes.
Oh, okay. Is that going to be available, or is that?
We haven't acquired anything like that. Yeah, that's one of the reasons we're sending out the technology assistance to the students so they could acquire
Okay.
earbuds or iPads or laptops or whatever.
Did all the schools get the $10,000?
Yes. Yeah. So one of the things we have to do with this is any of the subrecipients over a certain dollar amount will have to do some verification as far as what they spent the money on to be compliant with federal guidelines. But the $10,000 threshold, that it did trip that we do have to ensure that they have been impacted by COVID. It's not just, we can just give it out to whoever. We have to get some assurance from them. And so we had a simple application for the superintendent to fill out, basically providing their name, contact information, and then verification that they're requesting assistance.
So they know they should have something?
Yeah, well, yeah, and the checks were sent out either 10 days or 2 weeks ago, sometime in that time frame, so all the schools should have it. And I'll come text messages back from some French lines or superintendents and says, hey, here's how we're using money, thanks.
Well, the request I had came from the employee of the school, so I'll try.
And so far, out of the competitive grant process, I think we had, as of Tuesday, we had 50 applications from the 107 school districts. So about half. So you may want to hit up the school district. We've sent out emails several times to the superintendents to remind them of that. And I think it closes tomorrow. We may push that back just because we want to get as many schools in that process, so we'll probably open that up a little bit longer.
I've got another question, Dave. I'm not sure that I'm asking the right person, but I did bring it up in the health committee a while ago. There's yellow plastic fence in front of our new clinic there. Hey,
Oh, yeah, that's to protect against from somebody wandering off that gate-in wall.
Yeah.
We have it in the process to install a new
Oh,
railing there.
okay.
We just pulled it out of the construction budget because, you know how, I mean, they just add 1% to it and we can get it done.
So
It's,
Okay.
actually, they should probably start work here pretty soon on it.
Okay, well, I guess the reason I know is because we might facility night.
Yeah.
Like landscaping, and then you see the fence up there.
That was done kind of late in the game because really, you know, it wasn't really a requirement, but we wanted to do it
Just
safety-wise.
Safety-wise.
Yeah.
Thank you, thanks, sir.
Mary?
Yes, I would like to encourage you all to clearly mark when we're giving away disinfectant, the difference between disinfectant and antiseptic. So people clearly understand that there is a difference and they're not rubbing disinfectant into their skin or something. That could be harmful. David, I wanted to ask you a question, and I haven't seen this addressed anywhere else, and this may be the wrong committee, but there are some unmarked graves, I believe they're unmarked, up around the new clinic. I think it's my understanding that there's 4 of them. Are we going to be doing something to honor these graves or honor the deceased? It's my understanding that they're Cherokee citizens. There may even be, I'm not exactly sure who is in there, but who it is. But are we going to do something to?
We've just really taken over just recently the mowing and care of it, so I haven't heard any plans to do anything yet like that, but I'm not sure what department it's gonna fall on. And Hastings, the clinic, they have helped out by taking that over as far as the mowing and weeding, because they're right there. So that's, a big benefit to us, because we're pretty busy sanitizing and stuff around here. So, but I'm sure we're gonna do something. I know Dr. Jones is wanting to try to put a nice new fence around, but it may take a while with everything that's going on right now. But if I hear something, I'll make sure to pass it on, and if not, I'm sure it'll get brought up or brought to some group to go ahead and fix it up.
Well, I appreciate that. I just want to make sure that we do this correctly and with all the humility that's deserved.
Yes.
Thank you.
Jesus.
I see that the Caduceus Tag Office looks like it's getting close. Can you update us on that?
Yeah, we actually can probably bid that out pretty soon. COVID just kind of threw everything back, and but we should be able to bid that out anytime soon.
Okay.
And that's our plan.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
Hey Rex, I was just gonna talk about what Mary was talking about. We have that in rules about passing legislation about unmarked graves. So that's gonna come up today, so FYI.
Very good.
Alright.
Any other questions for David?
Yes.
Sean.
Comment. Todd and Dave had a elder situation. I know things in the past, we kind of got to watch what we do a little bit closer as far as what we discussed before, and I hope we get some more of that done. And you really bailed them elders out the other day, so thank you.
Well,
I know you had to do that too, so thank you.
Well, we appreciate it. We like to help, and there's a lot of people involved in it.
Well, thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rick.
Got it.
I don't think this is Deb, I just want to publicly brag on the Buffalo crew up there. You can tell how good they look, and you can tell they're being taken care of, especially when the feed truck drives by. You can tell they're being handled, and Ken looks so good, and I just want to brag on they're doing a great job up there.
I'll pass it on.
And I'm excited about getting the other 25 head eventually, maybe.
I hope, we should find out soon how many we're getting.
That'd be a big,
Yeah.
but they're doing a good job.
I appreciate it. I'll pass it on, because they're taking it serious, and they want a good, healthy herd.
Just a second. Sean?
Yeah, one more. On that note, is the conversations haven't died about maybe processing some of that old buffalo meat, has it?
No, we're still looking at processing plant. Right now, I mean, time-wise, we didn't have time to get it with this COVID money, but
Yeah, I know.
it's going to be a long process to get one set up, approved, and I mean, you got to have USDA inspectors on site and stuff, so it's a pretty good process.
I like looking at them like everybody else does, buffalo, but we gotta feed them and everything, and eventually, like everybody in here wants.
We
I
hope
just hope there's conversations
it
will die out.
is, and we hope to get to that point where we can actually butcher some of them and keep the herd going. And that's going to take, with cattle, it's going to take quite a few.
Well, we were at Miami.
Get them and slaughter them. We want to try to get them up and sustain the herd. That is a goal.
Thank you.
Yeah, one of the best sights of a buffalo is when it's in a burger. We've had those for a while, and other tribes that have those processing centers, and I was just looking at maybe an option where we might contract with them
Yeah.
to at least do on an interim basis
Yeah.
till we find out how it actually works. Because we do have a nice looking herd, but they're good to look at, but we can't look at them the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there we have to utilize them in our nutrition, elderly centers, Head Starts. Now that would be a plus if we could ever get to that point.
That's our goal. That's our end goal. I mean, we want to get a good herd up to where we can maintain it.
Yeah. And one more thing, Todd, without having community meetings, if we were to order more hand sanitizers and the appropriate mask for the council members, do we order them through you, or can we order them ourselves? And can COVID monies take care of the cost? Where would we store those?
Yeah, so we can use our inventory that we've acquired, that masks are more abundant now than where they were 3 months ago.
Right?
As well as hand sanitizer. I was gonna say, we could burn through some of our inventory, and then if we need to acquire more, we can. So you guys should feel free to ask us, and we can get those resources gathered up for you. David's got, we have storage spots all over the place where we're keeping PPE supplies and then pulling out of that inventory. Some of it goes to community centers, some of it goes to first responders and fire departments. Some of it goes to our offices, but that's why we bought that in bulk. So if you guys would like some, just let us know what inventory you'd like to get. But do know that we are sending quite a bit of PPE as well as sanitation supplies to each of the community buildings.
Good. But we wanted to make sure that we keep our storage replenished for,
Yes.
for those hard times. We hadn't really hit hard times yet, but so anyway, so that's available to council members because we're in and out of the communities constantly.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions? Yes.
And I'd also like to say thank you for, we've made several phone calls about fire departments, and they have had a rough time getting things, and you guys got it going the same day and was able to pick it up the same day. So, thank you very much. That meant a lot to them because they were impressed you guys got it done so quickly.
We need to get it out there so they can use it.
Victoria. Any other questions for David? Thanks, sir.
Thank y'all very much.
Next up will be Real Estate Services, Ginger Reeves.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You have a copy of my monthly report. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to address them.
Any questions for Ginger?
Ginger, I've not received a call from my constituent that has that smoke shop in quite a while. Has that issue with the BIA, that reimbursement been worked out yet?
You'll have to remind me. I'll be happy to talk to you about it afterwards.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for Ginger? Harley?
Ginger, I noticed we purchased 2 pieces of property.
Yes.
Is there a plan for those properties, or just something that we don't want to do?
Yes, during the month of July, we purchased this property where the pine trees are, near the new immersion center up here where the old casino was. And I'm not for sure, that might be a David question as far as what we're going to do with those, with that land right there. The other one is the Stillwell, Blackjack Street. I think there is currently a shelter there, and I'm not certain what the plan is for the rest of that property.
Well, I'm certainly not opposed to purchasing property, especially hopefully that we will put it in trust or restrict
In time, we hope so, yes.
If I may, so the usage around, since we're getting ready to announce the renovation for the old Tahlequah Casino, which that property, what we call Pine Tree property, is adjacent to that. We are looking at some elder housing. And then we're also looking at building a elder speakers community adjacent to that so that the young kids can interact with an elder population, speak Cherokee, and create an opportunity for people to live next to the school and interact with the students. And potentially students can live and interact with the elders in that community as well. So that's kind of the long-term plan. That's what we're working towards. And as far as Blackjack, we are looking at an opportunity to do something related to domestic violence.
Thank you.
Keith?
Ginger, I wanted you to know that recently I had been needing some assistance for a economic development project in Chelsea that was right beside the railroad track and some old easement land there. that finally got done. Thank you very much. They've been able to actually close on that property now.
Great.
And the first economic development in downtown Chelsea in probably 50 plus years will actually take place here in the coming months because of that. So that is very important for our for Chelsea. Thank you.
That's great, thank you.
Just looking back to my notes, the Blackjack Street purchase over in Stillwell, is that the one that was supposed to be the woman's shelter?
At one point, I believe it was.
Back in
Yes.
2015, I think that's
Yes.
what we had donated
Yes.
it for, and we don't have any intentions on what we're gonna use that for? What
They
was
tried
that
to
again?
address that.
Okay. Is this gonna continuation of the woman's shelter?
We're evaluating additional things that need to be done to that facility.
Okay.
But we are looking at domestic violence efforts in that.
Okay, I was just kind of going through my notes of how we came, because I know it was supposed to be a women's shelter from back when it was purchased in 2015 I think Orchard Road Community Organization, I think was the one supposed to be doing it. And we bought it for like 80,000 or something, and then now we're purchasing it back for 200,000, I think is what the documentation stamp said on it. So I didn't know what the transfer, why we didn't open it with them, helping them do it, and now while we're buying it back.
When we looked at the facility originally, there were some life safety issues in there that we felt needed to be addressed.
Right.
And so, through several grant opportunities that we have and the options for us to manage it correctly, we felt like it was a better option for us to manage that rather than a partnership. And so that's why we made the decision to purchase that property. We are going to have to do some additional things, but we also bought all of the land around that as well, and we are looking at some additional housing for transition assistance.
Okay, great, because they definitely need that over there, and I was hoping that back whenever it happened in 2015, with all the expenses that we had given to that organization to get it up and going then, that was gonna be going by now.
Don't get me wrong, they did some good work in that facility. We
Right.
just need to put the finishing touches on it and make some adjustments, and then we'd like to expand that to some transitional housing as well.
Okay, perfect. All right, is that gonna fall under, I guess, behavioral health, where if it's a women's shelter, or are we gonna go through a housing?
Well, we're going to attach it we're going to try to fund it from several different sources.
Okay.
But more likely than not, it's going to be part of our One Fire program.
Okay.
Human Services.
Okay, all right, perfect. All right, appreciate it. Appreciate it.
Thank you, ma'am. Excellent job. Next up, the environmental programs. Chad's going to take care of it.
Good morning. Tom Elkins' report has been circulated. I can take any questions that you might have on the information.
Yes, ma'am.
Where are we on the landfill? I thought we were working towards closure on that, and there was like a 10-year timeline or something like that. Can you bring us up to date? What's going on there?
Absolutely. So, I was asked by a couple council members to come down here and speak to that, and so I think maybe on my report, if we can move to that, I'll focus, the majority of that on explaining kind of where we're at, where we're headed, and what the lay of the land is. So, as you guys are seeing reflected in the budget, and I previously mentioned that we're trying to put together a master plan for what the landfill is going to look like from now to closure. For a landfill, the goal is always to work towards closure, but that can take a number of years. It can take 20 years. It depends on how you want to proceed, how much money you want to invest, the economics and viability of it. So what we've done is we've submitted a grant request for a 2-year, it was funded for 2 years, which we have received for approximately $180,000, $190,000 to engage a firm to evaluate our operations and make recommendations for operations going forward. We've engaged an engineering firm that specializes almost exclusively with landfills, and they've done a lot of work out at our property in Stillwell for a number of years. And we've started having the conversation, sharing data. They've been on site, take a look and observe our operations and put together calculations for various options for us to proceed, based on a 10-year closure, a 20-year closure, a 5-year closure. we're gonna have all the options laid out. And in particular, also the taking a look at our operations to see, what is our cash flow situation? How can we optimize the way that we're doing business to eliminate some of the shortfall that we have, as you observed in the budget. It's not profitable, and it hasn't been for probably since the early 90s. And so we don't have that document finalized yet, but we are engaged with them and having that conversation. One of the things that we have observed, and we know that is going to be a primary component of that, is what is our tipping fee going to be. We have to raise our rates if we're going to eliminate the budget shortfall that we have annually. We don't know exactly what that number is going to be because it's going to be based on what kind of tonnage we want to receive, but we do know that it has to go up, and so we've already made an increase. It's probably not as much as we need to be, but it's a little bit close, so that way we can start increasing our revenues. And then all of the contracts that we have with municipalities and commercial haulers have all expired. And so once we get that information from the engineering firm and we make our decision on how we proceed forward, we're going to evaluate some longer-term contracts that might bring some stability of tonnage that we receive and cost. Now, raising fees is never popular, especially out of this landfill. And I want to make sure that I'm clear that we don't intend to raise fees in a meaningful way for individuals who live in the community that use that as their primary source of hauling off trash. It's the commercial haulers, municipal haulers that bring the vast majority of the trash that we receive, and I think it makes sense that should be where the cost savings should be borne. We have increased the fees a little bit, but we've tiered it such that individual families, maybe smaller little communities of a couple families, are not going to see a noticeable increase. But once you get past 500 to 1,000 pounds, that's when you're getting into the business of doing some pretty substantial movement. And so we have already increased those fees, and we've realized a pretty good bump in our revenue. And so I think based on increasing those fees now, getting a better idea of what we need, where we need to be going forward, I think we're going to see that budget shortfall drop dramatically. And I'm hoping that next year, when this budget's presented back to this council, that it's going to be quite a bit better. I think that we can get there. One of the goals, obviously, is to stop losing money on the operations. Breaking even would be ideal in the very short term, and there could be an opportunity for it to be profitable depending on the amount of investment that we want to make in equipment, staff, building a new cell, things of that nature. So the landfill is fairly complicated, I've learned. It's not digging a hole and filling it up and covering it up. I mean, there's a lot of regulations. There's a lot of capital cost involved. We've just completed a cell. I think we finished that up late last year. We also have the new equipment that the council approved several months ago, and that goes a long way to help reducing maintenance costs and things of that. And I think we're going to see, when we crunch our numbers for operations for this fiscal year that's wrapping up, I think we're going to see the benefit of that, and certainly next year. So I don't have a comprehensive report to give you yet on what the master plan will be. I can say that we're working on it. We have the engineering firm engaged. We're looking at every possible way to optimize operations, and also what the financial cost and what the time frames could be for closure. I do know that regardless of what we do, where we land on closing, whether it be 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, we are going to have to build an additional cell. That is, that's something we're going to have to do, because you can't just close the gates at a landfill. Once you do that, it triggers a lot of pretty serious and meaningful regulations that have to be complied with fairly quickly. And so as part of that analysis, the closure fund that we have set aside, we're going to take a look at where we're at on that. And I think as part of increasing our fees, we're going to set aside perhaps a little bit more money to help shore that up for when that time does come.
Okay, on your budget request, you have 2 openings at the landfill, and assuming that's correct, because there were several errors and openings in your department, but one of them was a heavy equipment operator, and I forget what the other one was. So my question is that accurate? There are 2 vacancies, and secondly, is that kind of an intentional cost-saving measure, but you want them left in the budget because you may need them at some point? So can you speak to that?
Certainly. So we do have 2 openings, that's correct. It's a landfill manager and a heavy equipment operator. We've made some organizational changes over the past year, and one of those positions has become vacant. Now, the landfill manager position, we anticipate filling that in some capacity. In order to that particular position is a credential. You have to have an individual who has various certifications under the regulatory requirements to actually put together the policies and manage the staff, screen the waste, and all of that. So I think we're going to keep that position. We might retitle it. Fortunately, we have Tom Elkins in my shop who knows, he has all the credentials and more, and he's been able to help us in the interim on that. And he's been leading a lot of these changes that have helped really increase our operations and decrease our expenses. So I think we're going to fill that position in some capacity. And the other position, the heavy equipment operator, I think for now we're going to hold on that until we have a better picture from our master plan what we're going to do. If we're going to accept more trash, from other municipalities, from other operators, we're going to have additional manpower. But I don't think that for the short term we're going to be able to fill that position until we know.
Okay.
My hope is that the master plan will be available in a more material way the next few months.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have. Sure.
Harley?
Chad, I've been talking about pine trees for 10 years.
Sir.
And I know you haven't been involved with this situation for the last 10 years, but I've got one more year left in the tribal council, and I've tried to get something done with their pine forestation for 10 years. I know maybe more than that. I guess what I'd like for you to do, and if you can do this, I'd like to see the correspondence that we've had with the Bureau of Inventory about our pine forestation. Everybody on this tribal council probably knows I've asked about pine trees. But that's important to us as far as the tribe goes, to get something going from those pine trees, because we can try and just let them grow up and not try to take care of them. So just to see that, I'd like to see if you can come up with a timeline of correspondence before your time even, with the Bureau. I don't know, maybe we need to make a resolution in this committee that we want something done within 6 months of the time I get off the tribal council. So anyway, I just want to bring it up again because now we've had the pandemic for the last 6 months, and sure they could get out and do some environmental stuff, on the outside. But if you could give us a timeline on the correspondence of what we have with the Bureau and who we spoke to down there, I'd like to see that.
Absolutely.
The tribal committee to see it. And I know you're working on it, but I'd just like to see what they're telling us about it.
Right, and I can't speak to the communications that have happened years ago, but I can try to gather as much of the information as we have. But I can say that we've been urging the BIA to move forward. And the last letter we sent, which was recently, we'd asked them to consider this project with one of the exceptions that are available under the regulations. And there's an issue between this. The primary issue is that it's not going to be a profitable endeavor. So we identified a funding source that could help at least start on this project. But I don't know if this comes as a surprise, but that particular agency's environmental assessment didn't marry with the BIA's environmental assessment, and so it got kind of hung up. And so that's why we urged them to move forward with an exception. And we haven't heard back from them on that, and I don't know that they're going to be able to come to an agreement in time to get the money.
And I know, and you may want to visit with Michael Lynn over in the road department, because when I was the road director, we had the same issue with environmental within the BIA. We finally got that resolved because this is so much the federal highway. So there's some other avenues we want to see if we can either eliminate early improvements to the environmental and something.
Sure, absolutely.
I think that if you look at those timelines, I think we'll see that. Thank you.
Yes, Councilor Busby. What we could do is invite the BLM guy to come and present and maybe talk about other tribes that have been successful in that endeavor. And then we can ask him questions and see if they can help us with because these guys have a lot on their plates as well. But we could bring somebody in, and we can do that. And Gail could make the invitation, and we'll ask them some questions, see how we can move forward with this. Okay?
Yeah, that's a great idea.
I mean, that's what they do.
Okay.
All right. That's okay with the rest of the committee. We will do that. We'll have somebody come here and present from BLM. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sean?
Yeah, Chad, I'm gonna make sure I got I'm paying some engineers to assess the landfill situation, right? So when do they think they're gonna get us the data that they're collecting?
So up to this point, they've collected, I think, most of the data that they need for the financial analysis. You know, this particular engineering firm was the one that built our last cell, so they're very familiar with our site, and this is almost exclusively what they do is evaluate landfill operations. I think that we've submitted the data to them. We've had some preliminary conversations about what this report's going to look like. I can't speak to a definitive date, but my hope is that within the next 90 days we have, we've charted out some options.
Okay, so we're paying them pretty good, so they kind of got a deadline, I imagine.
Sure.
All right, so then we're going to figure out if it's a 5, 10, 20 year, what it looks like. Is that right?
Sure, I think.
Lots of people ask, Janice asked, and she might have caught it, but I didn't. You know, are we going to close or open them? I don't know. So these engineers are going to give us some data. We're going to huddle back up and decide 5, 10, or 20. And go from there. That's a pretty good answer.
I think so. I think, just realistically, I think maybe a 5 or 10 year could be a little bit aggressive. I mean, there's a lot of work that needs to be done out there with some of these older cells. I mean, this landfill's been operating since the early 80s, and that was prior to some of the regulatory changes that came in the early 90s, which coincides in a lot of ways when it became unprofitable. There's a lot of work to be done. I don't know exactly what the contours of that or what the cost is going to be. So I think that's going to probably inform the length of time by which we're going to keep this open.
I caught something a while ago. This is just my ignorance going to ask here. All right, you said, and I'm not saying I want to shut the gates. We'll have to have a big discussion in Adair County about who wants, who don't, but I don't understand. We can't shut the gates and then get after the work and get it fixed like we need. I don't, just, is that federal guidelines?
You certainly can shut the gates, but whenever you cease to operate as a landfill, and this is my understanding of the regulatory framework, that it triggers certain closure requirements that have to be completed within a certain amount of time. And those closure requirements are, is for the whole site, all existing cells that are there. We have some work to do on the older site, the older cells. And we're evaluating what that's going to be. And I think that the timeline that it would require for us to get all that work done in the immediate cash infusion to cover those costs was going to be substantial.
What I've never understood, and I know you're just getting into this, and there's a lot of good people on it, but this is another thing, my ignorance, there may be an easy answer. If we're deciding to close, I would see bringing in more trash that eventually we're going to have to deal with. And I'm not saying I want to shut it down, but I don't understand if you shut the gates, we got to deal with the old cells and deal with all that. Well, if we don't shut the gates, and if we're really intending on shutting the gates, I don't understand building another cell and bringing in more trash that we're going to have to deal with later. I'm just looking for an answer, because when people ask me on the street, I'm like, I don't know.
So the landfill operations we have out there is reflected in the budget is a multi-million-dollar operation. I think that, right now we have to build another cell probably to facilitate the closure of the other cells that might have been overpacked back in previous times. And the idea of putting together this master plan is creating a time frame and a cost, understanding of cost allocation, so that way we can get this done while staying open and enjoying that revenue, because it does create a substantial amount of revenue, help offset the operating costs. So as opposed to shutting...
It does a substantial amount of revenue.
It does. It doesn't do enough to offset its operational costs, but it does a substantial amount of revenue. So the idea being you can put together a articulated path forward where you can stay open, build a new cell, not have all of it, not lose money, and find that sweet spot of what is the best way out of this situation. And that doesn't mean that once you do close, there's not an opportunity for that site to be used as a transfer station or something like that. I mean, there's opportunities there, but that's a very different equation than being the final resting place as a whole.
And I like that. I mean, you're just now getting in here, you hired the engineers, we'll get a game plan. So I like that, and that'll give me something to tell our constituents.
And the game plan would be as short or as long as we want it, but realistically, I think that we have to consider taxing some of the revenue that we received and putting into this additional money into this closure fund, so that way we're not getting a very large bill.
If you don't mind, keep me and Canaan, when y'all do huddle up, just a little input, and because we definitely get input from our constituents. If you agree to that, wouldn't you, Canaan?
Yep, sure.
Just kind of keep us in the loop on that, if you would.
Absolutely. And one thing I do want to emphasize, and I think it's worth repeating, is that we have to raise our rates at the landfill, particularly for commercial
I agree.
contractors. There's going to be complaints. It happens.
I'm worried more about the, like you talked a while ago, the families bringing.
Sure.
And the commercial.
Right. And we might have to do a rate increase for those individuals, but I think that we can find a way to make it to where it's not so impactful. We've made sure as a primary priority that we set aside roll-off containers for those individuals to come and dispose of their trash and make it as financially easy for them as we can. That doesn't mean that there won't be increases, and everything increases with time. So
Because it's really, the way I look at that thing, and I don't want to hold up this, but I mean, it's in our backyard. It's, well, until someone teaches me different, it's a service to our people. I mean, moneymaker, unless somebody teaches me different, no, but a service. And I'd like you to use kid gloves when you consider the folks' rates and how high that goes up, because it's just a service. Do you agree, Captain?
Yeah, absolutely. And we've talked about that last time whenever their rates went up initially is, you know, I'm not so much concerned with Walmart trucks coming in and dumping their trash and raising rates on them, but a family with a sack of trash on their back that's walking to the landfill, that's the folks that we need to be thinking about.
I'd like to leave them alone as much as we could.
And I think up to this point, we absolutely have, and that's the plan. The amount of trash that we receive from individuals of that nature is relatively small compared to the rest of it. And that's at least the directive that I've given, is that we need to make sure that we ease the pressure on the rates for those folks.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Mary?
Yes, gotcha. I was just wanting to inquire to see if there'd been any other communication regarding the possibility of those fishing licenses for our at-large visiting inspector.
I've had some additional conversations with my counterpart at the state. There have not been any additional meetings since last month. I have presented to them a proposal kind of that we discussed to see if it would be palatable for the licenses for at-large out of state. I think that, it's no secret that the relationship between maybe the governor's office and the tribes is not at its best. And I don't think that, I would like to think that that's not part of the issue, but they certainly haven't been receptive to responding to that. And also, the intervening issue we've had arise is the McGirt case. And so we're taking a look at what that means going forward. And I'm still moving forward as best I can to have those conversations, but the game's landscape has changed a little bit, and I'll always keep you updated on any additional information I get.
Sure, appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep.
I think, make sure, I couldn't catch it out, on the commercial vendors, you said, will the rate go up before the first of the year, or?
I mean, we've already done a slight
Right.
increase, and I think my plan is going forward to have a number closer to where we need to be. I don't know that we can, you have to ease up to some of these jumps. It depends on where where we land on the calculations, but I would anticipate that we would enter into at least a one-year contract with these particular vendors probably by the end of the year.
About when?
By the end of the year, I would imagine. That's
So
my goal.
we'll give them plenty of time so they can adjust to their customers and stuff, just not slap it on them.
Right.
Thank you.
We'll ease into it.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Chad?
Just wanted to follow up with Mary and her comment on out-of-state citizens. Yes, definitely since the McGirt case ruling, I think we've mentioned it several times in correspondence about the hunting and fishing rights, and now more than ever there is a jurisdictional question in perspective to our sovereignty, which is our treaty right to hunt and fish. And it would be my understanding too that if you're a Native American, if you're a Cherokee citizen, you have the right to hunt within inside the Cherokee Nation jurisdiction. So if they came back here, and of course now we're trying to correspond with the state, but it's more of a maybe needing to take a harder position on this with them and moving forward and saying, hey, we have a lot of legal backing within regards to our jurisdiction to just expressly give this right to our citizens that they have without any infringement from the state. So just wanted to reiterate what Mary said, and definitely looking forward to try to expanding that hunting and fishing altogether to where we can create jobs with our marshal service and making them take over some of the tasks and some of the financial responsibilities that we may get from the United States. So just really looking to see what we can get out of this deal moving forward with the hunting and fishing. So, but I appreciate all the work you do. And
absolutely, I appreciate that. And if I may, the hunting and fishing, the hunting component certainly is more complicated than the fishing, and it is a very very complicated topic, and so we're working through what that means. And one thing I would point out that, in the absence of a compact, right now we enjoy Oklahoma citizens across the entire state being able to hunt and fish entirely within the state wherever they want. That is not something that would be available in the absence of a compact, so that's a consideration also that we're weighing into the conversation.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's a good thing that you can go across the state. However, I'm still always kind of the fashion that the jurisdiction and making it stronger is more important than trying to express it across the state. That's just my personal view on it. The way it's handed down from the federal government through the state and the way the state's ordained to wildlife and hunting is that the fish and the wildlife belong to the state. Even though it's your land, the deer running through it belongs to the state. So you get a tag, you get a license to kill that deer. Under the jurisdictional aspect of it, it's questionable whether or not those deer now belong to Cherokee Nation. So that gives us the jurisdiction of how many tags to regulate with, and so on and so forth, to pass on to citizens and to state citizens that live here, and maybe charge them the license, and being able to make that as a revenue stream into the tribe that, we have 70% of the people in this area live that are state citizens, not tribal citizens, that we could charge license and hunting fees to, and make that a revenue stream for natural resources, to hire jobs with conservationist programs for our kids. It's just, there's a lot of opportunity there that definitely I'd like to see investigated.
Absolutely. I would point out also that, under the Supreme Court cases that have came down over hunting and fishing rec cases over the past decades.
Right.
I don't think that there's an opportunity in even considering McGirt to where we could regulate the activities of non-citizen hunting and fishing within our reservation boundaries. But that's a conversation we're looking into in more detail.
Yeah, because like I said, that's kind of like
it's kind of dicey.
Crux thing. Yeah, if they belong to the tribe, how else can anybody else kill them unless we sold them a license to do it? So, but I appreciate it, Chair.
I guess a comment or question, I guess.
For 7 million compact.
Do we have those roll-off containers for where people
That's just the
bring
people.
washer, dryer, steel items?
So we have a number of roll-off containers, and one of the things that we're looking at is there a way that we could, screen this waste and remove some of the metal, because it's not only slightly profitable, but it also increases your stable airspace. And that is one of the issues that we're looking at, but right now, we don't have a system in place.
And the reason I bring that up is I know in Delaware County, of course, we have the green box district, but we have the stations where people go take their trash. And then they have these 6 roll-offs where if people bring a wash machine or a piece of steel that goes into those containers. We had an incident, I don't know, several years ago where all this stuff was happening like that, and the solid waste system wasn't getting the dollars, but there were some workers there taking that off and just putting it in the pocket. So I'm wondering, because it's thousands and thousands of dollars that goes into steel. So I'm just wondering if we have a roll-off, or whether people have to put that in with particular roll-off, and then They tried to sell it and recoup some of the money from the steel that was sold.
I mean, that's certainly something we're looking at. I think that the vast,
Are you saying we don't have that now?
we do not, as I understand it.
Oh, okay.
But
I think we're missing a big opportunity.
well, we're a municipal trash landfill, so the vast majority of the trash we receive are from, residential households. And, as compared to a construction debris type landfill, like you see that the recovery of metal a lot more frequently there, as I understand it. But that is something we're looking at.
Well, I noticed there in Jay, and it's just a little town in Jay, they have these big roll-offs, and that thing gets filled up in a week. All kinds of metal in there. And it's just people from different households, not commercial. Just people don't have a place to go throw a washing machine or a dryer or something like that away. And I remember the case several years ago where those workers were taking the steel and taking it to Joplin someplace. They were getting thousands of dollars for that stuff. And finally, somebody wised up and caught on to what was happening over there. And so I think it's worth looking at. Just put a roll-off out there and take and sell it and let it the landfill with our income. So, anyway, something to think about.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? Chad? Thank you, sir. Oh, I'm sorry.
So to change your Chad Harsh issues now. The GPR system we have. Harley I gave him some information about a cemetery. There's some extra spots in there. And Mary asked about too, and the legislation's coming up. What do we need to do when these come up? Because I know he's gonna need that system. Do we just submit it to you and say, hey, because I understand the GPR system is at the Terrell office, not in your office, correct? And that's Willard, I think, that runs it? So how can we get that corrected where the GPR should be in your office?
Well, I'm not sure that the GPR is ultimately going to land in my office. I know that there's similar programs are administered, through the GPR work that they do over with Willard. I think the CCO has some piece of engagement, and I think there's also some tribal council funding. I think what we'd have to do is talk internally once the piece of legislation passes, what that's going to look like. I don't have an answer for that.
Yeah, that's why I was wondering how to get it out to them when they request it. Maybe that would be a good time to get the NAGRA for grant for 2 years, because that's going to come up and do that. But I know that's going to come up, so I just put that in your court to get back with me and the other council members, because it's going to hit everybody's district. And that CPR, you might just buy another one. I mean, if we need to figure out a way to get funds to do that, but it's going to come up because we have already found things that are already, they're stacking bodies on top of bodies when they bury it. So the GPR is going to come into effect.
Certainly. I mean, if this body passes a legislative act that creates a program or a service, we'll find a way to implement it to the best of our ability.
That was it. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions for Chad? Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. No old business, new business. Speaker, you want to take the first one?
Is the resolution authorizing placing land in trust, developers in the pavilion in block 74, Tahlequah. Put that form of motion.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Councilman Deere, you want to take the second one?
Yes, this is a resolution authorizing placement of land in trust, and I caught 127 acres. I'll put that form motion.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Any announcements?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I appreciate your directors coming in person today. Communication for me is much better.
Yes.
Appreciate it very much.
Yes.
I don't know if you guys are aware of this. This is just a comment. I caught Jody walking out the door, and his mother-in-law just passed away.
Oh, no. Really?
So I think we should take a moment of silence.
Yes.
Thank you.
Take the board.
Motion to adjourn?
Second. All in favor? We are adjourned.
So.